John Glasser. He joins us from Washington. He's Director of Foreign Policy Studies at the Cato Institute in the Capitol. And John, I have to ask you, President Trump has tried to define the U.S. mission in Syria quite narrowly, a battle against Islamic State. We saw now U.S. forces fighting Assad loyalists. In northern Syria, we have the U.S. in a confrontation with Ankara over this offensive, this Turkish offensive. Does the U.S. now need to more clearly state what is its mission going to be in Syria and how it's going to deal with some of the challenges it's facing there well beyond Islamic State?
Well, I have to say, I think that the Trump administration has actually been relatively clear in what they consider to be their mission in Syria, and I actually have to disagree with you that it's been defined narrowly. Secretary of State Rex Tillerson made a statement last month describing a U.S. role that would include a humanitarian mission to save the Syrian people, to bolster Kurdish forces, to counter Iranian influence, and to one day pave the way towards some transition of this regime to another one. That's a pretty expansive and specific set of criteria. What's unfortunate about it is that there's no congressional authorization for this presence in Syria. That makes it illegal under under U.S. law, and there's actually no international legal justification for it either, since we don't have host government permission, and of course Syria, the regime, doesn't present a direct threat to the United States. The clashes that we heard about today are inevitable if you insist on maintaining an indefinite military presence with thousands of U.S. troops in Syria, marauding around with all of these other factions in this complex civil war. You're bound to have clashes with the regime, and there's a very real risk that they can escalate into something much more nasty. We don't want to get into a situation where we create a vacuum in Syria and lead us down the troubles that we saw in Iraq.
That's an important point I want to get back to, but first, Fadi, what's your take? Do you think that the Trump administration does have a clear vision, a clear policy in Syria?
Yes, there is but that's true, that we have a legal issue here. Congress has
but
to...
But is the directive clear also?
Yeah, well, yes. I mean, even the boundaries, the physical boundaries. Today, the United States, within a few months, have created a situation where it controls the northeast part of Syria and has a very strong control over the Iraqi border. The idea is to stop the Iranian expansion into basically towards the Mediterranean, that corridor, the famous corridor they talk about. And that's done through helping the Kurdish forces, the Kurds in northeastern Syria. There is no problem with, everything else, the Sochi process. We realize and we understand, and we have told the other parties this is a game between Russia, Iran, and Turkey, but it has to do with west of the Euphrates. Yeah, I think the process is very clear right from the beginning.
John.